Hello and welcome back to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be considering how you can analyse any unseen extract. When we're talking about something that's unseen, it's the idea that it's the first time you've read it in a controlled setting. And when we think about it, we can often panic because we're so used to just getting a bit of clarification, maybe trying to get the expert in the room. The idea is you're analysing this on your own, so you can't seek anyone's help. This video serves to show you the strategies you can search for when looking for clarity within the text, help you navigate what the reader reactions could be for any given text, and offer you the potential questions to ask when considering a writer's intentions. This is a whistle-stop tour, so by no means is it answering every possible element within an unseen extract, but it's a sure darn good start to get you thinking on the right lines. Step one is that you actually read, not just the question, not just the extract, but first and foremost, the blurb. It gives you clues. The blurb is really the summary above the extract that gives you a way in to key questions like what, who, where, and when. Here is the blurb for the extract we're concentrating on. It comes from Brighton Rock by Graham Greene. My advice is that you actually reread the blurb before you begin to read the extract in any exam conditions, because it gives you so many quick wins about what you're about to encounter. Hit pause so you can answer these 4 questions before we continue. So, what did you find? Hopefully you had some comments like this around it. The character we're concentrating on is Hale. He's distracted from his job. That's what's going on here. His job is working for the Daily Messenger and he gives out cards for prizes to people in the holiday crowd. We are in Brighton. We know that this is set in 1938 and it's a bank holiday. Now, all of this is a great way in for when we now concentrate on a tiny snippet of text. I'm going to read the text once for understanding, and obviously for clarity purposes, I'm going to need to then reread the text. When I'm reading for a second time, I'm identifying language that heightens the mood, and I'm also trying my best to unpick a few of the reasons why the writer crafted it in this way. Now, it's over to you. I want you to read the extract as I've given it to you and try and annotate it in terms of devices you've seen. Hit pause if you need thinking time. So to refine your sense of what you should be looking for as you begin to look for trends and patterns, my suggestion is that you search and summarise what is going on within the extract. So to nail this step, for each paragraph, I would summarise into one word or phrase what that paragraph focuses on. And then I would annotate that one-word summary onto the extract. It will give you a huge sense of clarity as you begin to look at the overview of the whole text when you begin to analyse. Now it's your turn to do that with our extract from Brighton Rock. So no surprises, the first paragraph concentrates on the character of Hale, and the second paragraph concentrates on the setting and, more importantly, how the holiday crowd, how they fit into the landscape of Brighton too. So now you've summarised each paragraph into a word, you're now ready to identify and annotate the granular detail of language devices that spring out to you. You need to be considering a few questions when selecting evidence. What do the verbs show you? Is there a semantic field? If so, what links the different words in the collection you're shown? How are emotions changing across the extract in front of you? And is the mood echoed in some way against the sentence type choices that the writer has crafted? I'm going to demonstrate this for you, but it's worth you considering this is the nuts and bolts of your analysis. So it's probably going to take you about 6 or 7 minutes to go through this particular stage of your annotations in exam conditions or any conditions that are unseen. Hit pause if you want to practice identifying language devices that you would pull out from this particular extract. So, these are some of the things that drew my attention. It's the mystery first and foremost. Our main character, we're told, is at risk of being murdered. In the end of that opening sentence, we're intrigued. But Hale seems terrified, and we get that from the extremely long sentence that runs from line 2 all the way to the end of line 4, which coincides with the end of the paragraph. That description of his inky fingers, his bitten nails, his manner seeming cynical and nervous, this is someone living in fear. And his fear juxtaposes that of the fun of the holiday crowd that are mentioned at the end of that first paragraph. The complex sentence that this all sits within pushes further his distance and difference from those who are having a great time by the beach at Brighton. As we move on to the second paragraph, they, that's the holiday crowd we assume, seem powerful through those verb choices of them coming by train, they're rocking down, and they're stepping off. But also the description of Brighton as a whole seems full of life. It's bright, it's glittering, it's sparkled, it's got this simile of beauty, like a Victorian watercolour. So there's so much joy here. It's almost a stereotype of joy, with pretty flowers and great music and lovely houses. The alliteration of miniature motors and aeroplane advertisements makes it seem so at odds with what we know to be a death threat for the main character. So now we need to consider our reader reactions to what we've read. To nail this step, we need to annotate around the extract potential reactions we have to pivotal moments within the extract. We have to question our sympathy at this point. Do you feel sympathy with the character of Hale or the situation you're reading about? If so, why? With any extract, you're really considering what words are specifically pushing you as a reader towards a certain reaction. And then, what questions are you being prompted to ask as you read? That's one step closer to you working out potential writer's intentions. Hit pause now if you'd like to try out considering your own reader reactions before I share what I would pick out. So, the mystery of Hale. We're questioning, why would someone want to murder him anyway? And we're interested, really, as readers, is Hale scared because he's committed a crime or because he's a victim? I'm also intrigued as a reader about whether he'll be hidden amongst the holiday crowd. That complex sentence implies that he might be, as the sentence kind of puts his description of being at odds within the idea of this crowd being available and around on this Whitsun Sunday. But equally, we're intrigued about who they are. They're referenced in the first paragraph and then again in the second, and it's not necessarily the holiday crowd. Could they be the potential murderers of him? And the crowds seem ominous. The description of Brighton full of life seems quite ironic. Is this because Hale might die, so he's even more at odds with the landscape? And finally, setting up this idea of a stereotype of joy, it contrasts very much with the fear that Hale is facing in that moment. We're now ready to reflect on possible writer's intentions. To nail your understanding of this, you're really offering up potential motives for the writer to craft their writing in this way. Are they trying to prompt us as readers into being emotional, or simply to inform us? Questions to consider when you're thinking about writer's intentions. How does the writer structure their text to interest us or grip us? What questions do we have as readers that go unanswered? That's where your previous annotations on reader reactions become incredibly helpful. And do you notice there's a shift in reader reaction as the extract actually unfolds? The things that are a hallmark to help you guide your analysis of what you've unpicked in terms of language might be the structure of the text in general, whether that's the beginning, the climax, the ordering of events, flashbacks, flash forwards. What ideas are repeated? How is tension built up? The questions you might ask around description might be the choice of vocabulary, the use of imagery, the engagement with the senses. But equally, how is the setting set up through the creation of character and setting, through time, location, atmosphere, the use of dialogue when we're thinking of a character, and the use of action as it's shared with us? Does anything actually happen in the extract you read, for example? And finally, the narration. Is it omniscient? That means an all-powerful narrator who's narrating in the third person. Is it a first-person narrator who seems vulnerable? Or is there more than one narrator in operation? All of these things bring out for you questions that you need to have answers to as to why a writer would craft in this way. Hit pause if you want to try it yourself first. So, our omniscient narrator pushes the isolation of Hale. We know that Hale knew, so our narrator seems very powerful. The fact that he gets such good detail in that second sentence about the body language of Hale through that listing stresses the anxiety is a big thing that we need to be aware of. It's as if Graham Greene, as the writer, is crafting that anxiety is at the height it could be with Hale, in contrast to these joyful holidaymakers. The narrator shares the journey of they, and we're never sure if they are just the holidaymakers or if Hale is actually just unsafe because they could be anyone, including potential murderers. I think the big hallmark when we've got this beautiful landscape of Brighton that's glittering and beautiful and there's a death threat for our man Hale is to prove that appearances can be deceiving. So in summary, in the context of an exam or an unseen extract of the time conditions, the priority is the quality of your reading, because you can't do any great analysis without it. The reading of the blurb, the question and the text is one thing, but the rereading is where the good stuff happens. That needs to be part of your habit. That's where the bulk of your time will be spent. Then within that rereading, you're concentrating on how you search and summarise the focus of each paragraph, which then builds onto the idea that you can then spot and scribe the trends that you're spotting within the language to greater depth. That then pushes your understanding of your reaction as readers and potential other reader reactions, alongside pushing you to reflect on possible writers' intentions. There's no sense you need to be an expert, but that you need to have some awareness of how these different facets operate. And the more that you are confident doing this under time conditions, the better. So if you've watched this once, it might be worth you now attempting this process with a different extract, or just re-attempting it with the same extract after a day or two. Best. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?